Thank you, councillors. Welcome to the July meeting of Dubbo Regional Council. Up first we have the prayer and acknowledgement of country. Councillor Lawrence.
Yes, thanks, Mr Mayor. Prayer. O God, grant that by the knowledge of thy will all we may resolve shall work together for good. We pray through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Acknowledgement of country. I would like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people who are the traditional custodians of the land. I would also like to pay respect to the elders, both past and present, of the Wiradjuri nation, and extend that respect to other Aboriginal people from other nations who are present.
Okay, thank you, councillors. So, councillors, please note that representatives of the media are present and have been approved to use a recording device to record this meeting for their records if they wish. I also advise that council is now web streaming its standing committees and council meetings live to the internet. As the signs indicated upon entry to the council chamber, your attendance at this meeting in the chamber is your acceptance of the condition that your image may be recorded and streamed to the internet, as well as being retained in the archives of the recorded council meetings and standing committee meetings. So, councillors, up first, we have confirmation of minutes. Can I have a mover of the previous minutes, please? Move Councillor Lawrence. Seconded Councillor Jones. Any discussion or debate on that matter? No? All those in favour? I know carried. No leave of absence tonight. All councillors are here. Move on to public forum. So first up we have a Mr Colin Middleton regarding CCL 19/118, the proposed River Street Bridge. And for members of the public's knowledge that we do allocate half an hour for public forum time. So if Mr Middleton's about, if you'd like to address the council. And our meeting procedure also indicates that each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. So Mr Middleton.
Mr Mayor, councillors, the CEO and council staff. My name is Colin Middleton of 6R Bungalgumbi Road, Dubbo. I address council as a concerned community member and one of a group of fellow-minded citizens of the Stop the River Street Bridge, Troy Bridge Now coalition. We understand that council will be discussing during your meeting tonight the proposed River Street Bridge. We believe the motion reflects everything our concerned community group are calling for. Dubbo has outgrown the Newell Highway that dissects our city. The city needs and demands a second flood-free high-level bridge crossing of the Macquarie River. The RMS River Street Bridge proposal is a poor and flawed option for a second high-level flood-free bridge for the city. Dubbo needs a 1 in 100-year bridge, which could be easily built for far less money, less disruption to the city, and offering good value for money from the public purse that a cost-benefit analysis would confirm. We want council to be more proactive and take a positive lead in this very important matter. With the largest single investment on public infrastructure in Dubbo on record, we need to get it right. We need council to put an end to the myths and fake news, the war of words and erroneous claims over social media and the press. We want a real debate and access to the real facts that influence state government and the RMS in deciding on the River Street Bridge option. In light of Parks now promised their bypass and a perception portrayed by RMS and the media of an anti-Dubbo sentiment, we call upon our council to facilitate and coordinate a River Street Bridge public forum and invite local Dubbo MP Dougal Saunders and RMS Western Region Director Alistair Lunn to attend and answer our questions. We cannot wait for the future, we need to act now. The LH Ford Bridge was built in 1969 when Dubbo had a population of 15,000. Now, 50 years later, and with a population of over 45,000, Dubbo and the Newell Highway still only has one high-level bridge across the Macquarie River at times of flood. I am an affected landholder with my property impacted by this proposal, along with one neighbour to my south who will have the Newell Highway going right through the middle of his house. along with the impact and loss to the Aboriginal community and local custodians, the Tubbergar Wiradjuri mob, and the city of Dubbo of our Wiradjuri Park. This park acknowledges our local Aboriginal history with the important access to the Macquarie River, which is Dubbo and the Aboriginal community's lifeblood. We have known that this area is rich in Aboriginal heritage, with over 22 sacred sites recorded and heritage listed. This particular locality, as explained to us by the custodians, the Tubbergar Aboriginal elders, was of important significance, especially the riverbanks and immediate environs. My late father, when he purchased the property in 1976, was told by the traditional Aboriginal owners that this area was very sacred to them, and my father allowed them to visit, camp and fish along the river on the property, which is now going to be desecrated by the proposed building and construction of a national highway across it. We believe the proposal would result in direct harm to Aboriginal objects and heritage. The unnecessary loss of Wiradjuri Park to the Aboriginal community and the much needed public space around Ceresia Bridge would be lost forever. This is shameful. In conclusion, Stop the River Street Bridge Coalition oppose the construction of the River Street Bridge and call for a bypass of the Newell Highway west of the city, crossing the Macquarie River with a flood-free high-level bridge at Troy Bridge. The well-planned and visionary Orange City Northern Distributor Road Network has set the blueprint for Dubbo on what can be done and should be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Middleton.
People shopping Dubbo.
Okay.
140,000.
All right, I'll move on to Miss Karina McLaughlin.
Good evening, Mayor, councillors, CEO, council staff and anybody who's watching online. And thank you to all the people that came along to support tonight. So I wanted to say congratulations to Mr Ryan and the council for putting forward this motion. I think that this bridge is the worst thing that could possibly happen to Dubbo for a lot of reasons. The first of all, from the day it opens, well, even before it opens, it's going to cause massive disruption in its building. The day it opens, it's going to cause massive congestion, increase in congestion on Wilandra Street. Just to show you on this map here, the pink line here is where the bridge would go. All of the traffic from the River Street Bridge would immediately be sent into the intersection in front of the Ceresio Bridge. That's two lots of bridge congestion into one intersection. And then it will be sent under the railway line and straight up into the intersection of the LH Ford. Okay, New South Wales farmers want the Newell Highway to be a road train route for its entire length. Now, I would agree with that, provided that we have a bypass through Dubbo. We do not want road trains going through residential areas and through these intersections. The other thing is, it's not going to help in terms of flooding. So on the east bank, Burke Street, River Street, Brisbane Street flood. Right here you can see how close the river comes to Burke Street. Right, the so-called 9.5 kilometre detour that they want us to take if it's flooded goes around to Yarrandale Road. Now anybody who knows that area knows that Yarrandale Road, you can see the creek there, floods. So that's, besides sending all of that traffic all the way around Dubbo would cause chaos, it floods there anyway. So getting onto the bridge from that side of the river would be impossible. Now, on my side of the river, I live in this intersection here, and my church is the Riverside Church. In 2010, it flooded right up to the car park. That's well above where the so-called flood detour is marked on the artist's impression. So being able to divert the traffic up Thomson Street will probably be impossible. Now, even if it was built up and the traffic could go up Thomson Street, we don't want it to go up Thomson Street. This is a residential area. And even if it did go up Thompson Street, it would have to go back down the Mitchell Highway into the very intersection right in front of the LH Ford Bridge. Right, it takes 2 or 3 hours to get across there. Why would you want to send more traffic from River Street into that intersection in the middle of a flood? Also, if you're coming in from Parks and you manage to get into that intersection for the LH Ford, would you chance... Thank you. I mean, and you knew that the LH Ford is a 1 in 100 and you managed to get into that intersection probably after a couple of hours of trying to come into town. Would you go across the LH Ford, or would you keep going up Victoria Street, down Thompson Street, and then hope to get somehow onto the River Street Bridge, even though the River Street Bridge, well, there's been different reports of how high it's going to be. And then if you got onto the River Street Bridge, would you be able to get off the other side? No, everybody would still take the LH Ford. It's just not, it's not feasible. Besides that, we want a bypass because we want to keep the traffic out of the residential areas and out of the inner city. I did some research on whether Dubbo would lose any business from a bypass. Now, unlike Yass was set up as their tourism catered to rest stops and pass-through traffic. Dubbo is a destination. The average stay in Dubbo is 2.1 nights for a domestic visit and 16.6 for overseas visitors. We're a destination city. Whether we have a bypass or not, we will not be losing any money from tourism. And in fact, if we have a bypass, we'll actually collect more pass-through tourism because we'll have the space to build roadhouses and truck stops. So all of the traffic that's currently trying to avoid Dubbo congestion by going down the potholed Yumundri to Domingley Road will bring business to Dubbo. I would like to say, basically, even if Dougald Saunders' nasty threat of taking the $144 million and running is true, we don't believe that it would be because it'd be political suicide, but even if it does, I truly believe that we would be far better off in Dubbo without the River Street Bridge than with it. It's going to destroy a lot of recreational areas and Aboriginal sacred sites when it's being built as well. It's not going. At the moment, the river is a beautiful place to be, and we want to keep that for the tourists. We don't want a concrete jungle down there. And
Thank you, Ms. McLaughlin.
Okay,
5 minutes.
time is up.
Thank you. Okay. Up next, we have Mr. Andrew Mills regarding the proposed River Street Bridge.
Mr Mayor, Dubbo councillors, thank you very much for this opportunity. My name's Andrew Mills. I'm the manager of McDonald & Company. We're wool brokers out next door to the airport. I'm here to ask for your support for the motion that has been proposed by John Ryan. Value for money is the first thing that comes to mind when I think of the River Street proposal. Will that investment be recouped in benefits to the motorist, in time savings and ease of travel? Is there a better way to invest and address the whole issue of traffic congestion, including the trucking community? In Dubbo, there are 3 wool stores, and over the last couple of years, combined, we have handled between 90 and 120,000 bales of wool. Once sold, wool bales are loaded onto trucks to be delivered mainly to Sydney, but also to Melbourne, Adelaide and Brisbane. This accounts for 1,000 to 1,200 semi-trailer truck movements each year travelling through Dubbo. There would be 3 times that amount of truck movements bringing the wool in from farms into the stores. As such, we are such a small part of the truck movements. As we know, Dubbo is a hub that is a crossroad that runs all directions to major towns and cities, sharing the roads with cars and trucks. There has been a huge investment in the infrastructure of the town's roads, bringing traffic into town, whether people stop or continue their journey. We want that infrastructure to last as long as it can, so offering a bypass will reduce wear and extend the life of that investment. All of Dubbo welcomes the input that tourism brings to town, and again, great investment has occurred for people to visit and have a great experience. A ring road would reduce traffic congestion and bring many larger vehicles off the town roads, enhancing the memory of our town and their visit. Something is wrong when a better idea is not given the opportunity to be taken up with the original funding going towards it. To be told that that the bureaucracy cannot apply that funding to a better but different project is a huge impediment to progress. Privately and publicly owned businesses are able to be flexible in their visions and achievements. I'm sure that government can be as well. So in conclusion, my theme would be value for money. I'm sure we could all strive to see, it should be what we all strive to see in progressive infrastructure investments. I urge you, Dubbo councillors, to support the motion that has been proposed by John Ryan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mills. Mr Alan Murphy regarding the proposed River Street Bridge as well.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, councillors and others. I have a couple of reservations with the current program that's put forward with the bridge. There seems to be quite a lot of confusion on just how high this bridge is going to be. There's been comment that we need a 100-year bridge, which is fine, and that's one of the designs. However, the approaches range from 1 in 20 to 1 in 50. So I just ask with common sense, how can you have 100-year flood immunity when you've got access roads and approaches to a bridge in a 1 in 20 and 1 in 50 design? So I think it needs to be quite clearly clarified just what the design's for, so people can then make their own mind up whether or not that does make sense, because on the surface it doesn't make sense. A correct flood design of the proposed bridge may get traffic across the river in a flood, but it cannot and will not be able to move traffic either into or out of the city to the north. So some sort of bypass, particularly further north, will allow that to happen. At a minimum, Yarrandale Road would need to be raised to allow that to happen. And even with the current bridge, that must be done, otherwise you will not get access to and from the north. In my view, council should be now looking and planning for the future for a city that may be 100, 150,000 and needs to start securing corridors to allow the growth to happen. There's been several proposals put forward for routes of bypasses and ring roads, and I think it needs to be seriously looked at, and the actions need to be started now to secure that land. Otherwise, when we decide we need a roundabout, we'll be going either by Narromine or by Wellington to get around Dubbo. So just urge council to look at their forward planning and look at the options being put forward by others. Some of the ones put forward, I put one potential route forward, which obviously is preliminary and needs to be assessed. But that route had a lot of advantages. It started at Camp Road, which is in a depression, so it would be easier, conducive to building a overpass there. Went down Chapman Road and then across the top of Outlook Estate. Again, that's the highest point on the railway line there, so it would be far more cost effective to look at building a bridge there, in that you could have a cutting under the bridge, rather than further down where you'll have to have a mammoth job to build a bridge. I think a bypass or a ring road, whichever in Dubbo, goes a lot more than just bypassing traffic around the city. It allows traffic to skirt around to go where they want to go rather than through the city. And as was mentioned with the trucks, the majority of truck movements in Dubbo come in from the south or north or east or west, and they end up at probably three areas. The airport sort of precinct there, where there's much the wool stores plus Pillins and other major transport outlets, and then the access to the west, and then out around Fletcher's and also North Dubbo. So trucks don't need to come down the highway there. They can skirt around to get to those areas, coming in and out and do their business. What's proposed, I think will be a real shame if there's not a lot of thought put into Willandra Street, because if we get to a city with 50, 100,000 people or more, and we're still trying to shove all the traffic down Willandra Street, I think it's pretty narrow-minded. So I really do urge council to work with the RTA and the community to look at some options that will start planning now for a ring road system for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Murphy. We have Miss Kylie Thale. Thale, is that? Thiel? Sorry.
Thank you, Dubbo Mayor, Councillors, CEO and Council staff. I'm Kylie Teal. I'm 66 Manilda Street of Narromine. We'd like to address the Dubbo Council about the issues that are arising due to the proposed River Street Bridge. By not having a bypass road at Dubbo, all the Dubbo's costs have been palmed on the Narromine residents as a cheap alternative to a major highway going through our residential streets. By wasting $140 million on a River Street Bridge, not fixing the major problem that Dubbo have with too many interstate trucks causing congestion problems along the Newell Highway. By creating a bypass road to the west of Dubbo and rising Troy Bridge up for a 100-year flood or even a 50-year flood, this will allow Dubbo to have a second Macquarie River crossing. All major Narromine roads are completely cut off during flood times, and the Dubbo-Newell Highway is the only one left open. Instead of the government funding the Newell Highway and a 100-kilometre bypass road heading in the same direction, with the 100-kilometre bypass needing a complete rebuilding of the structural road base, having no safety features like the Newell Highway after spending millions of dollars of placing safety features along the Newell stretch. The devaluation of the Narromine real estate, with all about 150 homes affected, with 6 right-angle bends and 3 stoppages, plus 4 local schools. Narromine's restricted bypass opened in 2014. This Manilda Street and Collins Street, these roads are not engineered to take heavy vehicles, hence why they are always fixing the water mains and the sewer pipes. If B-triples are the future of our roads, our railway crossing and our council-owned roads there at Narromine are not rated to take B-triples. The complete safety features of having trucks running on council-owned roads, travelling close together with no edges of road for safety pullover areas or guide posts. Narromine has a council that doesn't voice the concerns of their residents of the safety issues rising with the increased volume of over 250 new interstate trucks running through our residential streets. This issue only benefits the Mayor's political advancements. The bypass at Dubbo using Troy Bridge will solve a lot of issues by leaving the heavy vehicles on the Newell Highway, and the cost of the Narromine 100-kilometre stretch should be added to the costing of the River Street Bridge proposal and see how much it's going to cost to be able to fund the 2 roads. And I'll thank you, Dubbo Council, for letting me speak. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Carl Murray. Okay. All right, and next up, Mr. John Fisher.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councillors, staff. My name's John Fisher. I live over in West Dubbo on the corner of Vilandra and Baird Street, so I have a vested interest in getting the bypass through off Vilandra Street and get the bypass going. Every truck that goes from Brisbane to Melbourne and Melbourne to Brisbane passes by my window, so I think my opinion is to go forward with the bypass. As a consequence of the bypass, the road, this is a little bit off track, I understand now that I'm here, that the traffic lights there at the corner, at the new traffic lights, is going to create some difficulty on the south end of the from the traffic lights south to East Street. There will be a continual medium strip there, so limit, and there will be no entry into Wilandra Street off the highway. Currently, there's a lot of traffic goes in that street, and if they block that corner there, all the traffic will end up having to go up East Street. Now, there's 2 schools up in East Street there, 2 primary schools, so all the traffic that currently go up Baird Street now will have to go by East Street. As I said, there's a lot of children up there, and I don't think that's going to be very beneficial for them. There's a lot of emergency vehicles go around my corner. I wouldn't hazard a guess. I'd say there'd probably be 15 ambulances go around my corner every week, not to mention the police and the fire brigade. If they have to go up East Street and then try and get out of East Street into where they've got to go, it's going to add vital minutes, in my opinion. The people on the eastern side of Wylandra Street, if there's no thing in the medium strip there, they will have to turn south and go down towards McDonald's and find a place to turn around if they want to go to town. So they won't be able to turn right and go into town as they do now out of Baird Drive. It's proposed that the laneway in front of my house and down to East Street will be turned into the highway. So instead of having a laneway where we can park, or there's a 2 metre gap between the footpath and vehicles, the vehicles will be passing right at the footpath, and I'm sure no one would like to see any accidents there. There's a lot of people walking up and down there. In addition, our garbage collections is on that on that road on Wylandra Street, and if the highway is part of right up to the curb, then your garbage collectors will be in the highway as such, and I assume that's going to be fairly dangerous for them, for the drivers. I wouldn't like to see what would happen if a semi-trailer come roaring down there and belted in the back of one of the garbage trucks. Just a little point there. So, as I said before, I think the River Street Bridge is not a very good idea. I think a bypass, and if we do it now, before the River Street Bridge gets built, then I think we're a long way better off. And I'd like to thank the council for my time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fisher. Okay, councillors, up next we have mayoral minutes. And the first mayoral minute is the nomination of Matthew Dickinson as Emeritus Mayor, and I formally move that way. Councillors, I had a visit from Mr. Dickinson not long ago. CEO and had a visit from Mr. Dickinson not long ago, and he requested that he be made an Emeritus Mayor through the Local Government Association, it's now called Local Government New South Wales. As said in the mayoral minute, the association rules indicate that he doesn't actually qualify for that award. However, seeing that it is so close to it, and considering that we were amalgamated, I think it is and his term was cut short because of that, I think it is fair that we do nominate Mr. Dickinson for the position of Emeritus Mayor. There is no doubt that Mr. Dickinson did have a lot of success when he was the Mayor of the former Dubbo City Council, and I think it is a good idea to put this for the Local Government New South Wales to make that determination. So, councillors, I formally move that and open it for discussion or debate. Councillor Moore.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Question through you to the CEO. What is the criteria for being nominated for Emeritus Mayor?
To councillors, the criteria for being nominated is basically that there must be at least 5 years of service as a mayor. In relation to Mr. Dickinson, he had a service period of 4 years and 8 months. So at this point in time, he is 4 months short of that 5 years minimum threshold that's been determined by the Local Government New South Wales Board.
It says in the business paper that there has been a proposal floated to reduce the eligibility period to 5 years, but that it's at 6. So I just wanted clarification on whether, as things stand at the moment, is the minimum criteria of service 6 or 5, and if the answer is that It's currently 6. Are we able to get advice with any certainty as to when and if it might be reduced to 5?
I can answer that, Councillor Lawrence. It went to the last board meeting of Local Government New South Wales, and the board determined that it be reduced to 5 years. However, the minutes of that board meeting have not been submitted to the next meeting of the board for determination, but it has gone through the Board of Local Government New South Wales. And as you know from your own dealings with councils, minutes are very rarely changed at the next meeting. Further questions or comment or debate on that matter? No, I put that. All those in favour? No, carried. Up next, we
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Not everyone showed hands, so can we have a for and against, thanks?
Sure, okay. All right, councillors, all those in favour? All those opposed? I declare the matter carried. Okay, up next we do have CCL 19/114, the sale of vacant land in Wellington. I formally move that. Councillors, as with the last meeting of Dubbo Regional Council where we identified 2 parcels of land in Montefiores in Wellington, we also have a significant proportion of land in an industrial part of Wellington which has the capacity to be an employment generator. This portion of land, which is owned by the council, is sitting there effectively doing nothing, just waiting for someone to come along, give council the right price for it and do something fantastic for the Wellington community. I'm more interested in not necessarily making a buck for council, but I'm interested in getting something actually happening in that portion of land that council does not need, nor does council use. This portion of land, again, you know, use your imagination of what could be used there, what sort of business could go there if it is put on the market for sale, and if some ingenious business person comes along and does something fantastic with this block. I put this up, councillors, because I think it needs to be brought to the attention of councillors as quickly as possible that there's an opportunity in Wellington for something great to happen. So that's why I've put this up. Instead of going through the usual review of land, which council would do every year or so, that we put this up as soon as possible so things can happen there as soon as possible. We know Wellington's crying out for jobs, and I think this is a great opportunity to help bring jobs to Wellington. So I've moved that way. Any discussion or debate? Councillor Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I certainly support your motion that you've put forward, and totally agree that certainly anything that can help the economic development of Wellington is certainly welcomed. And I just, I suppose I'd put it to the economic development team to maybe think outside the square in how we can advertise this, promote it, what we could do to actually entice a business to use this location. So I certainly support your motion, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Grant. Any further comment or debate on that matter? No? I put that. All those in favour? No, carried. Up next, CCL 19/115, Councillor Observer to the New South Wales Local Government Annual Conference. Councillors, I formally move that and say that we've had some indications from Councillor Parker that he too would also like to be an observer for the annual conference. I think the Merrill Minute is fairly self-explanatory. Any discussion or debate on that matter? No, I put that. All those in favour? No, carried. Up next, matters considered by committees. The first one is report of the Infrastructure, Community and Recreation Committee meeting of the 8th of July. Can I have a mover? Councillor Lawrence. Thank you. Seconder, please. Councillor Moore. Any discussion or debate on that matter? No, I put that. All those in favour? No, carried. Now, CCL 19/117, report of the Economic Development, Business and Corporate Committee meeting of the 8th of July. Councillor Moore. Thank you. A seconder, please. Councillor Etheridge. Any discussion or debate on that matter? No, I put that. All those in favour? No, carried. Now, CCL 19/118, the report of the Street Tree Advisory Committee meeting of the 2nd of July. Can I have a mover of that? Councillor Ryan. Seconder, please. Councillor Etheridge. Any discussion or debate on that report? No, I put that. All those in favour? Aye, no, carried. Now we come on to, councillors, the notice of motion. We have one notice of motion this meeting from Councillor John Ryan, which is the proposed River Street Bridge. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move that motion.
Okay, can I have a seconder of the motion as put? Councillor Etheridge. Discussion. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. First up, Councillor
Diffie.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to declare a non-pecuniary less than significant interest based on the fact I'm employed by New South Wales Parliament as a senior electorate officer for the local state member.
Councillor Ryan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I think just by the fact that we had so many speakers against the bridge shows what the community sentiment's like. Anyone who looks at this picture of the area of River Street in flood knows that this is an unworkable and ludicrous solution. In fact, I was thinking that we could potentially sell the block of land we're looking at getting rid of in Wellington to the state government for a bridge, because it would make just as much sense. I've been a journalist for 25 years, and there is always more than one side to the story, but there's always the exception to the rule, and this is it. There hasn't been one thing ever presented to me that makes me think there is a single advantage. And in fact, I agree with Miss McLaughlin that I think it would actually be detrimental to Dubbo, and I'd rather not have it. I don't want to see that money go away, but I think it would cause so many problems. I've looked at this issue in depth, and I've heard a few other things tonight that I hadn't thought about. The emergency services access off Willandra Street, if you've got the median strip, sending emergency services vehicles potentially at high speed right into the path of two primary schools, along with a lot of other traffic. The garbage collection, it just goes on and on. There are just no positives at all. The flood traffic, I've heard recently that we need it for the 3 days every 10 years when we might need to get an ambulance across the bridge. Well, you know, surely we could divert some of that $140 million to pay for a helicopter to sit in Dubbo for the few days that it's flooded, and we'd have plenty of change for the taxpayer. You know, these are arguments that are very emotive and they sound good on the surface, but there's absolutely no basis in fact to them. And if anyone thinks that an ambulance speeding along the River Street Bridge and then trying to get through all the flood traffic that has to go, instead of north along the Newell Highway because that will be flooded, they'll have to come down to Matthews Motorcycles, turn left at Erskine Street and up past the hospital. If anyone thinks driving an ambulance up there with hundreds of trucks creating a car park is a good idea, they haven't examined it closely enough. So I'd like to commend the community for coming along tonight. We've even had a lady from Narromine who's saying that the ill-founded idea that Yamunjeri via Narromine to Tamingley could be a potential bypass is a good idea. Well, I think she's laid rest to that. So thanks very much for coming. And I would just ask the local member and the state government to really take the community concerns into account. This is not a few people who are irate and have a few bees in their bonnets. This is the structural integrity of Dubbo into the future, and it's an absolute madness, and it's going to make the city worse, and there are 1,000 reasons against it and absolutely none for it. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Any further comment at all on this matter? Councillor Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I certainly agree with what Councillor Ryan has said and the perspectives that he's put. Another perspective on this is that in one sense we're caught in the crosshairs of a bit of a national economic issue, and that is the impact of flooding on the Newell Highway, on the state and national economy. And there was a report that I had a quick look at this afternoon that suggested that, this was a couple of years ago now, but suggested that unless remedial work was done on the Newell Highway at particular points where there's floods, that the overall economic impact was just shy of $1 billion. And I was looking also at a report concerned with local flooding down in the Bland area. I think in 2016 that estimated the cost there at about $120 million. And that report had a bit of detail in terms of the breakdown of those costs. And it was interesting that most of the costs down there weren't local, weren't costs to the local economy. They were costs to the statewide and national economy, and particularly supply chain interruptions across the country. So I think it's important to appreciate that in one way this is about Dubbo, but in another way it's not. And we know that the government has been very responsive at times to the demands of the freight industry, not always in a good way. And we've seen that play out in various ways in rail too, in terms of the planning of rail corridors. So I think what we're really looking at here is very much a statewide and national issue. And there's a concern about flooding at different points on the Newell, including Dubbo, and the impact on the economy. So what I think has happened, well, this is certainly one way of looking at it, is that those pressures have been brought to bear, and then solutions have been looked at various points. And here locally, the cheaper solution in one sense is River Street, because I think everyone knows that you can't build a high-level bridge at Troy and justify it unless it's part of a distributor or ring road. And that's simply because Troy is considerably further north, and so there's that view taken that it certainly can't be at Troy. But the problem for us is that it might be a solution to a statewide and national issue, and it might be the cheaper one, but it will have a detrimental impact on the development of Dubbo. And the reason for that has been variously stated, but if you build the second high-level crossing at River Street, in many ways you're consigning the Ring Road project or the distributor project to the dustbin. So we're seeing, on my view at least, an attempt to address a statewide and national, in some senses, economic issue arising from the operation of the freight industry. It's being imposed on us here locally in a way that is not consistent with our growth and not consistent, certainly not consistent with addressing our local traffic problems. And I don't think the people of Dubbo are going to accept this proposal. I certainly support the notice of motion, and a very important part of the notice of motion is that it calls upon the CEO to produce a report to us on ways that we can stop the bridge. And the state government should well understand that we will be very powerful, if we choose to be, in a campaign to stop this bridge. And there is examples across the state in response to various different issues where local governments have been very creative and very forceful and very effective in stopping infrastructure projects if they choose to. So it's really to the state government's peril if they don't come to the table and solve this. I certainly hope that if they don't, if there's not a genuine attempt to solve this, that we get advice back from the staff on our legal options. What options have we got in what courts to hold up or ultimately stop this project? What are legal options available to us and the community in terms of Aboriginal cultural heritage? And people in the room might remember the so-called Hindmarsh Island Bridge affair, which was concerned with a bridge in South Australia. And the development of that unpopular bridge was well and truly stymied by litigation that went on for years about Aboriginal cultural heritage issues, and that was concerned with the operation of a particular federal act. So it might well be that people in Dubbo look to that piece of legislation to take forward these claims about Aboriginal cultural sacred sites and so forth at jeopardy. It might also be the case that any report that we obtain from staff looks at things like the direct allocation of financial resources into a campaign to stop the bridge. We have the capacity as a local government to engage in advertising, to direct staff to get involved in a campaign. There's all sorts of things that we can do. So I would certainly support the notice of motion, but more importantly, speak directly to our local member and to the state government more broadly to solve this problem, or you will face the mother of all battles here in Dubbo, and there is plenty of historical precedents for it.
Further comment, councillors? Councillor Gumley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's two issues, as I see it, concerning this whole concept of the River Street Bridge. And the first is obviously the technical aspects. We've had professional people tell us that this is the way to go, and then there's others who say that it's not the way to go because it simply won't serve a decent purpose. That's one issue. The other issue, which in my opinion is more concerning broadly, is the fact that we have a bunch of people, a small number who have come here tonight to speak to us, who just feel like they're not being listened to. They feel as though they're constantly saying the same thing over and over, and that they're, butting their head against a wall. Now, whether they're right or wrong is really irrelevant when it comes to politicians like us and like our local members, state and federal. Just listening and giving their constituents the time to say, yes, I hear you, I hear what you say, I may not agree with you even though you've prosecuted your argument the way you have, but they feel as though that's not happening. And I implore our local state member to change the way that constituents feel in that regard. It may well be the case that he doesn't change his mind in relation to the technical aspects of the bridge and decides that this is what he is going to support, but he needs to make sure that his constituents feel as though he's listening to all of them. It's disappointing, I suppose, the frustration that has come from our community members into council tonight, and you can see it every day. Like I said, frustration in relation to the way that they think the bridge should be done, but equally frustration into feeling as though they're being ignored, and that ought not to happen. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, councillors. Any further discussion? Councillor Etheridge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I've been fighting this River Street Bridge proposal for basically the last 2 years. A lot of the lobbying that I've been doing has been done basically behind closed doors. I'm not out there in the media every day punching who I've gone to speak to and who I haven't gone to speak to. I have taken our issue to everyone and anyone that I think will listen to us and give us a good hearing. And to be constantly frustrated. I have now got it on the agenda of the Lachlan Regional Transport Committee, who have made representation on our behalf to the then Minister Pavey. I also have it on the agenda of the Newell Highway Task Force, who have also done the same on our behalf. I have badgered people, I've annoyed people to listen, because the people are feeling they're not being listened to, and they're not. None of us are. I feel like I've been banging my head against a brick wall for the last 2 years, but I won't stop. We won't stop. We must keep fighting for this. This proposal is flawed on so many levels. It's obscenely wrong. absolutely obscenely wrong. I want them to stop whatever it is they're doing now to get this River Street Bridge up and going until every other opportunity is investigated fully. And I mean fully. A lot of the figures that are being bandied around at the moment are 10, 20 years old. It's time we got some actuals. It's time we started looking at Dubbo as what we are today. But better still, where we want to see our city go in the future. I can see our distributor mirroring the success of the Orange Communities one. Look what it's done for them in their growth and development. That's what we need here. And we need to be looking at things futuristically. People have got to stop looking at short term, start looking at long term. If they would just sit down and listen and look at all the options, maybe we might be able to get a resolution to our issues. And I commend Councillor Lawrence on everything that he has said, and I echo his sentiments exactly. Thank you.
Further comment, discussion or debate on the matter? Councillor Moore.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move an alternate motion, and that motion is...
amendment,
amendment, that an extraordinary meeting be held of Council in the future in regards to CCL 19/119, so councillors can be fully briefed in regards to the River Street Bridge.
Is that deferring this motion until the...
Sorry, I'd like to defer CCL 19/119 so that an extraordinary meeting can be held in the future in regards to this issue, so councillors can be fully briefed in regards to the River Street Bridge.
Further seconder, Councillor Jones. Discussion or debate on the amendment now. Councillor Moore.
Mr Mayor, we've come here tonight and we've listened to the public. Every speaker that came here tonight was unsure on facts of what's been proposed for this item. Councillors here tonight are unsure of the exact facts of this proposed item. There's conversation still happening within the community of whether it's facts or whether it's fiction and whether it's right or not. We need to be 100% sure as a council, if we are going to put an objection to this, that we have our facts and our figures wholly and solely correct. This is a big task for this council to knock back a big ticket item, and unfortunately, I know it has so much community backlash, but I am one for making sure that we are 100% of what we are talking about. We need to be factual, and we need to get our figures right. We need to, and in saying that, there needs to be meetings held with other government members which are programmed and are ready to go prior to us making a full and frank decision on this. And to support the community, everyone has a view, but whether that view is right, according to exactly what has to happen, we need to find that out. Because if we go forward with this with the wrong facts and the wrong information, it makes us look like fools. Absolutely makes us look like fools. This is a big ticket item, one of the biggest things that are happening in Dubbo, so we need to be 100% sure that we have marked all our boxes incorrectly, we have all our information right, that people in the community know exactly whether it's how high the bridge is, what comes off it, and everything else, so they can be put out into the community. And the state government need to come on board as well. I mean, that's one thing that we have to do. So that's the reason why I put this amendment in, because I would hate to see us go forward at a bull of a gate and get it wrong. I'd hate for us to get it wrong. We have to be factual. We have to have the correct and precise information so we can satisfy the community on our decision, what we take at the time. We don't want to be made to look like scapegoats in the end, and that's why I put that forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comment on the amendment, councillors? Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I understand and appreciate what Councillor Moore is trying to do. I couldn't support it in that form. the only thing that would lead me for a deferment is if there was any likelihood that you and the CEO were able to secure meetings with senior relevant politicians who may be able to, you can put your case to, who may be able to alter the course of this plan. I don't think we need any more facts about the bridge proposal. It's obviously flawed. But could you enlighten us on to what your activities could be in the next few weeks? And I would say that if you indeed have a meeting with senior members of the coalition, that I would be happy to defer this motion pending the outcome of your meetings, and if we didn't get a satisfactory hearing, that an extraordinary meeting of council is immediately convened at the earliest available opportunity, so we can put this motion again.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. In the coming weeks, I am meeting with the Deputy Premier. This will be a matter that I will raise as well. Let it be clear that I support what residents are saying on this River Street Bridge at the moment. I think my biggest issue with the River Street Bridge proposal is not taking one car off the Wylander Street, The idea that traffic lights will be the big solution to all that, in my mind, is not going to work. You can't just build such a big parcel of infrastructure like this and not get it right. So I totally agree with Councillor Moore on that one as well. But I also have been around in politics for some time, and I always know that things need to be open for negotiation. So that being the case, I think that it's a good idea that we do defer until, at very least, myself and the CEO meet with the Deputy Premier and other ministers regarding this matter. I wish to emphasise I am certainly on the side of residents when it comes to this third bridge. I think it's got a number of problems that need to be sorted out. But I think what we need to be doing is being very clear that we are going to discuss this again in the immediate days following my and the CEO's meeting with the Deputy Premier. So I certainly support what Councillor Moore is proposing, and I will certainly seek to call an extraordinary meeting of Dubbo Regional Council as once I get back from that meeting. That's what my proposal would be, and be open to the public as well, so we can put everything on the table and we can have a fearless, frank discussion on the views of the higher-up members of the government, what they have to say about this matter, and see exactly where we can come to some sort of compromise somewhere on the matter. We can't just continue going down this path that we're at the moment. It's clear the community have clearly said no. I believe now it's Dubbo Regional Council's responsibility to negotiate a better outcome. At the moment, we just can't have it all one way and not the other. We've got to have a negotiated outcome with the state government. My meeting with the Deputy Premier in the coming weeks is designed to do that, and I'd certainly ask councillors to support that deferral, and then also with the agreement that we will have an extraordinary council meeting in the days after. So, Councillor Ryan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you to the CEO. Given the sentiments I just expressed, do you think that the motion as put by, or the amendment as put by Councillor Moore encompasses all the concerns that I've had?
In response to councillors, yes, I believe it does in fact encompass the concerns expressed. The proposal that in fact the Mayor and I would be attending a meeting with the highest level of government in New South Wales on this issue is quite appropriate, and then as the Mayor's indicated very quickly after that, he would call an extraordinary meeting to in fact ensure that this particular motion that's now being proposed to be deferred would be put back to the Council for their determination.
Councillor Lawrence.
I don't have a problem in principle with it being deferred, though, like Councillor Ryan, I don't particularly share Councillor Moore's view about more information. I certainly have a pretty fixed and developed view about the matter, and it's something that we've all been thinking about now for at least 2 years, a little bit longer, in respect of the broader issue of bridge crossings and where they should be. I'm also not entirely sold on the need for an extraordinary meeting. We normally, I think, according to a previous resolution of council, hold those meetings at 12 midday, I think is the rule.
There's no rule on that. It's up to the mayor when he calls it.
I'm just not sure why we wouldn't, rather than moving an amendment, if the amendment was voted down, why we wouldn't move to simply defer the notice of motion to the next council meeting, which, and the reason I should say why I might support that occurring is now that I know that you, the Mayor, have a meeting with the Deputy Premier that might touch on this issue, then it certainly seems to me a worthwhile thing to hear what he has to say about it before we have our final say on it and ultimately pass a motion that might lead to the production of that report and so forth. So, yeah, so for the reasons stated, my preference would be to simply move to defer the matter to the next council meeting, which I assume from what you, Mr Mayor, have said is after the meeting with Mr Barilaro, and then we just consider it as a notice of motion at the ordinary council meeting, because people are on notice about when council meetings happen and they tune in on the internet and so forth. I just don't, I mean, I like in one sense it having its own special meeting to highlight the importance of the matter, but I don't see a practical reason to do it. I would prefer to simply have it deferred to the next meeting.
Okay. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, look, I see some merit in what Councillor Lawrence says. I'm wondering if we could possibly, like if you go to that meeting and there's a brick wall and there's going to be no resolution or no movement from government.
Sorry.
If there's going to be no movement from government, if you don't get any sort of a hearing, can we have it flexible so we can then go straight to an extraordinary meeting? If it looks like there's room for negotiation, it can come to the next council meeting.
Under council's meeting code, a mayor can call an extraordinary meeting within 3 days' notice. Anyway, I believe that to be the case. I certainly like the idea that this is an extremely important matter that warrants its own meeting of council, so people can come along to the gallery and they can see the issues that's been raised, and it's specifically for that, so everyone knows what it's for, so they're not sitting through everything else. It is the largest infrastructure project that is being proposed for Dubbo in our history, and the most expensive, so I can certainly understand the reason for an extraordinary meeting and do it quickly, but on the other hand, in a practical sense too, having the extraordinary meeting, whether it's a few days after getting back from Sydney or waiting for the end of the month, in all practicalities, I suppose, it will achieve the same outcome. So I leave that to the council to see what they would prefer: an extraordinary meeting of the council, or deferring it until the next meeting of council. So, yeah, Councillor Etheridge.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I believe that we'll be getting our transport strategy presented to us in the October meeting. Is that correct?
Understand that is correct. Around about October, if it can be all put together by then.
Yeah, okay. So my thinking is that the information in that will also have a great bearing on our decision-making process. We have to make sure that we get it right as well, Mr Mayor. But I am in favour of Councillor for the deferment.
Councillor Parker, then Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I'd like to just support Councillor Moore's comments there. I really can't support the recommendation of Councillor Ryan to stop the project. We'll look at it there. Initially, I was opposed to the location of that third bridge. I also preferred the location of around over Troy Bridge. I saw a lot of merit in that as well. But I also look at other areas as to take into consideration. And one is that the vehicular traffic around Dubbo is getting heavier every day. Dubbo is growing and it's going to continue to grow. So we've got to look at that in terms of vehicular traffic. Okay, it is designed mainly to perhaps make things life easier when it does flood, but having a look at, and I'm not quite sure if any other councillors had a look at the RMS display or video that they had on in the window, which actually showed the vehicular traffic and going under the bridge, under the railway bridge, crossing, whatever there. It really looked quite good, and that sort of swayed my mind a little bit as well. So I do support further discussion and research, and as such we'll be supporting Councillor Moore's amendment.
Further discussion, Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I looked at those videos, Councillor Parker, and after working in TV for 15 years, I know that you can make a video appear to be whatever it is that you want to be. One thing that really concerns me, and talking with the staff about the proposed or the traffic study that's coming, and one thing I want to put on the record and make very clear, because it would be very easy for the state government to throw this out as yet another myth and red herring, is that a River Street Bridge has always been proposed, but a low-level bridge. Now, the connectivity to the city can be quite well served by a low-level bridge that doesn't disrupt that growth area of town without it being a high-level bridge. The high-level bridge will be in use a few days every decade. So, you know, it's a very expensive thing where a low-level bridge will provide everything we need. And a high-level bridge at Troy will provide the impetus for a Western distributor. And in discussions with the former Mayor of Orange, when they put their Northern distributor through, he said, "You blokes in Dubbo are lucky." He said, by his estimates, Dubbo would reap far more benefits than Orange did. And anyone driving through the Northern distributor, which I do quite frequently, you can see exactly the growth and the jobs and the opportunities that's brought to Orange. Thank you.
Further comment or debate on the amendment? No? Okay, I'll put the amendment. All those in favour of the amendment? All those opposed? Declare the amendment carried. The amendment now becomes a motion. Any further discussion or debate on the new motion? Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I can sympathise with the public, and lots of the people in the public that know that I've been very vocal from the start on this issue. I still have reservations on what can happen and what should happen, but I want to be, in my mind, satisfied, 100% satisfied that we have the correct information to come forward to us. As I said, this big ticket item, for councils to knock back big ticket items and to be objective for it, we need to have plenty of ammunition. And we need to encompass that ammunition and so we can fire it and it has a direct hit. So that's the reason why I've asked for this. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Moore, any further comment or discussion on the matter? No? Councillor Etheridge.
Mr Mayor, I agree with your sentiment that we still should have that extraordinary meeting to bring the community up to speed with your outcomes of what happens in Sydney. And then we wait on our new transport strategy report so we can digest all of that as well, and then we can start moving forward from there.
Further discussion, Councillor Parker.
Would be a better idea to have a workshop before we have an extraordinary meeting, so we get a full understanding of what's going on.
We can certainly do that.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, further discussion, debate on the matter? No, I put that. All those in favour? All those opposed? Declare it carried. All right, now we move to the reports from staff, CCL 19/120, the 2019 Community Needs and Satisfaction Survey results. Can I have a mover and seconder of that one, please? Moved Councillor Grant, seconded Councillor Etheridge. Any discussion on that one, please? Councillor Grant.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a very quick one, just through you to our Director of Culture and Economy. Sorry, my eyes are going blind, I think. I just need to confirm where the figures that have been put in here, were they from the online or were they telephone results that have been put or reported to Council?
Through you, Mr Mayor. The data in the covering report has been taken from the phone surveys, which was conducted by the consultants, which is deemed as the appropriate survey to look at. The web and online responses is provided as an appendix for information for the councillors.
Further questions at all, councillors? No, I put that. All those in favour? All right, no, carried. Up next, we have CCL 19/121, the Code of Meeting Practice. Can I have a mover of that? Councillor Moore. Seconded Councillor Gumley. Any discussion or debate on that matter? No, I put that. All those in favour? I know, carried. CCL 19/122, Aquatics Leisure Centre open and close dates and daily operating hours. Can I have a mover of that one? Moved Councillor Moore. Seconded Councillor Etheridge. Any discussion or debate on that matter? Councillor Grant.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a couple of comments around, once again, the opening hours. I suppose with the proposed opening hours that have been put for Dubbo, Wellington and Geary, I'm just a bit confused as to why, we're charging people to enter these pools the same price for every pool, but we're obviously offering a better service to the Dubbo people compared to the Wellington and the Geary people. So I just would like to ask that question, and also would like to ask is what would the implications be at actually increasing the hours for Wellington and Geary to the 8:30 p.m. Opening, like 8:30 closing time, sorry.
To the councillors, the report before you tonight basically encompasses the existing hours of operation of all three pools. I suppose the reason behind the fact that there was no change to that is that we wanted to get some, I suppose, demand understanding of the users of these three pools, in particular with our new basically FPOS system, it's called a entry system, operating point of sale system for on our three pools. We'll get a better indication of the type of demand on these services of these pools for the next swim season, which basically concludes at the end of April next year. So the reason why, in fact, it's been set for that is because we believe that it would be hard for us to, in fact, make an assessment without that information available through that system. And secondly, the staff of the opinion that, in fact, the existing hours were sufficient to meet the needs of those three swimming centres for that period of time. There's a provision in there that in the event that, in fact, there is a change in demand, quickly we can, in fact, make an amendment to those times, and the provision there under 8 allows me or my delegated staff member to alter those alter those hours to better reflect the users' needs in those centres for that period of time. I believe this is the best way of dealing with it, because at the end of the day there is a brand new swimming centre that's being created in Wellington, and that is also going to be heated, so there will be some opportunities for basically that centre being open for that period of time to ensure that they get a better swimming use of that facility, both in relation to the actual program pool as well as the actual 50-metre pool. So I believe this will actually provide a better scope for us to determine future uses, and if the event, in fact, there's a huge demand, it will actually allow us to open the centres earlier and close them a bit later.
Okay, Councillor Lawrence.
I'd just like to also share the concerns expressed by Councillor Grant about the different opening hours, particularly in Wellington. I think people in Geary would probably accept that it's very much a smaller centre and is not going to realistically, because of the size of the business, necessarily have the same opening hours as Dubbo. But I think the Wellington pool is really in a different category, and particularly the difference in the evening between 7:30 and 8:30 I do think is significant. But it was good to see that one of the recommendations effectively allows for a review. So I would certainly urge people in Wellington who want equal access to the pool, the same access that people in Dubbo have in terms of opening hours, to make their opinions known to the staff and to councillors and to council, and then it might change in the future.
Further discussion or debate on the matter? No, I put that. All those in favour? No, carried. Okay. We better have a clear show of hands. All those in favour? All those opposed? No. Okay. All right. We move on now to CCL 19/123, road closure and disposal agreement, part of Gnu Street in the village of Wongarbin. Can I have a mover of that, please? Move Councillor Gumley. A seconder, please. Councillor Moore. Any discussion or debate on the matter? No, I put that. All those in favour? Declare it carried. Okay, now CCL 19/124, comments and matters of urgency. We'll start with Councillor Lawrence.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to note that I went to the NAIDOC ball on Saturday night, which was the culmination of a week of NAIDOC celebrations, and I wanted to congratulate all the winners of the different awards, and particularly note that our Grace Toomey received the Volunteer of the Year award, so to particularly note that. I was very privileged and honoured to have been nominated for an award myself, and I was told by the person who nominated me that it was on account of the work that Council has been doing in respect of the Drug and Alcohol Rehabilitation Centre and the Drug Court project. So I certainly didn't take it as any sort of a personal honour. It was very much about the work that Council is doing. And when I was there, I was very much surprised in a way to hear that you, Mr Mayor, were also nominated for the same award. I don't mean surprised in the sense that you haven't been doing good work in that space either, but I just hadn't heard that you've been nominated. And I don't know who nominated you or why you were nominated, but it may also have to do with the terrific work that Council and the staff are doing on these projects that, because of the reality of overrepresentation and various social problems, are really of importance to that community. And I was certainly proud to see that acknowledged in that small way. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Yeah, it was certainly a good night that we had on Saturday night. It was a surprise to me that I was nominated. I certainly am not someone who would nominate myself for something. I think that's a bit odd. But, it's one of those things that, look, I'm certainly appreciative of it. And, look, it's this council's doing big work, lots of good work as well when it comes to rehabilitation services in Dubbo. And as I keep saying, it is our major social priority for this council to get this rehab centre built. So the work that council has done is something I'm quite proud of, even though we haven't been able to get a sod turned or a slab laid. It's certainly something that we need to keep going at. We need to keep going at it as hard as we can. So, look, I certainly congratulate you and also the other winners, particularly Grace Toomey, getting that award on Saturday night was something that made me very proud, knowing that Grace works for Dubbo Council. So, thank you. Councillor Grant. No? Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I was scrolling through Facebook the other night, and I actually laughed out loud when I saw you welcoming Prime Minister Scott Morrison to town and telling him that if he kept coming back so often you'd have to send him a rates notice. Can I suggest that you add a service charge of $30 million for future, preempting the airport chairman, Councillor Mayor, preempting a an upgrade and extension for the runway so we can take ever bigger planes. The Bush Summit was a fantastic thing, and while a lot of the mechanics of it were flawed, and while in my opinion a lot of the people who were up on stage were the people who've caused the problems that we're facing, it certainly was a great forum to put Dubbo on the map and to highlight a lot of the issues we're facing. So yeah, great effort, and I believe that council had a lot to do with council staff had a lot to do with the nuts and bolts of organising it. But yeah, a great venue and a really good day.
Councillor Parker? No. Councillor Gumley? No. Councillor Jones? No. Councillor Diffie? No. Councillor Etheridge?
Yeah. I was just wondering where we're up to with the hospital parking issue.
Good question. Very good question. I don't know.
Oh. That's short and sweet.
No further information, but
Nothing?
I can write and find out and chase up for you if you like.
If you could, please.
Councillor Etheridge?
Thank you.
Councillor Moore?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Well, I too would like to echo Councillor Ryan's on the Bush Summit from the Telegraph. It was absolutely fabulous to see so many politicians on both sides in one area listening to our concerns. For many years, the Bush has always missed out on high-ticket and prominent politicians coming out in this area and actually listening to people. And it's good that the Daily Telegraph did make mention of this might be an annual event held here in Dubbo. So another highlight for Dubbo moving forward to, to stamp us more into tourism and opening Dubbo up for further opportunities. The other thing I'd like to say, Mr Mayor, is that the last street in Wongarbin got sealed today. So I'd like to thank Council and their work for coming through with that. I've had text messages off most people down that street saying thanks very much. They don't want street lights either, so we can take that off the map. But no, very good, and well done to the Council.
So there's no tar on your hands or blisters or anything like that from the work you did? No, right. Okay. No, right. Okay, look, councillors, regarding the Daily Telegraph Bush Summit, I've already spoke at the summit to the editor of the Daily Telegraph, Ben English, about potentially having it in Dubbo as a permanent thing, as an annual event. Of course, we all know it, Dubbo is the centre of the universe, as I keep saying. We're certainly the centre of New South Wales, and we're certainly the ones that are ideally suited for a organisation, a Sydney-based organisation, media organisation that applies to the entire state. Dubbo is certainly the place to do something like that. So if it could be an annual event, the Tractor Dubbo for a Bush Summit, it would certainly be a great thing for the city to have. And look, I certainly couldn't endorse what Councillor Moore and Councillor Ryan said. So it's something that's already on the minds of the people who organise it, and hopefully we can get some good results on that. So, councillors, that moves now on to Committee of the Whole. But before we move on to Committee of the Whole, I've just thought I would acknowledge that tonight is Chris Devitt's last night with us as Director of Infrastructure. So I'd certainly like to congratulate and thank Chris for the work he's done so far. It's not the total end of seeing Chris about. Chris is actually moving sideways to another position within council, so he's still around. But I think it's certainly worth noting that it is his last meeting as a director here at Dubbo Council, and it's great to see you hanging around for a very, very important task that you've got ahead of you when it comes to our water operations. In fact, some would argue it is the most important task at the moment when it comes to our water operations. So on behalf of the council, in fact on behalf of the wider Dubbo community, thank you for the work you do and you have done for the Dubbo community. Without a doubt you've gotten us out of a few pickles over the time you've been here, and thank you very much, Chris. Thank you. And as we're talking about staff leaving, it's only appropriate also to welcome our first meeting of our Director of Livability, Sky Price. who joins us in the very first meeting, of her very first meeting of Dubbo Regional Council. So welcome, Sky. So thank you very much for making Dubbo home.
It's terrific to be here, thank you, and I look forward to my family enjoying the sports and all of the activities that Livability provides.
Okay, so councillors, now we do move into Committee of the Whole. So can I have a mover of that? Moved Councillor Moore, seconded Councillor Gumley. Can I have a discussion on that one? Any discussion or debate on that one? No? Oh dear, it's a long day. Any discussion or debate on it? No. I put that. All those in favour? I know, carried. Okay, session part of Dubbo Regional Council. We are moving into a confidential session. However, at the end of that confidential session, the matters will be read to the public then.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. With regard to Committee of the Whole meeting held 22 July 2019, committee reports as follows. Item CW 1917, Progress Report on the Dubbo Indoor Sports Facility. Committee recommends 1, that the report from the Chief Executive Officer dated 11 July 2019 be noted. 2, that the Chief Executive Officer be authorised to continue negotiations and resolve outstanding land tenure and licence agreement matters. 3, that Council consider supporting development of the Dubbo Indoor Sports Facility through indirect contributions to a maximum value of $1 million, with Stage 1 limited to a maximum of $300,000. 4, that any further contributions by Council be proportionate to other funding received to a maximum indirect project contribution of $1 million. And 5, that the documents and considerations in regard to this matter remain confidential to the Council. Item CW 1918, Proposed Land Swap Arrangement. The Committee recommends 1, that Council endorse the initial draft land swap arrangement as detailed in the body of this report. 2, that a further report be considered by Council when all details are finalised. And 3, that the documents and considerations in regard to this matter remain confidential to the Council. Item CW 1919, Dubbo City Regional Airport, Centre of Aeromedical and Emergency Services, Large Air Tanker Base Project. The Committee recommends 1, that the Chief Executive Officer be authorised to establish a project partnership agreement and future lease with the Rural Fire Service, including a 3-year interest-free advance for $4,578,332 to be repaid over a 3-year period by 3 equal annual instalments of $1,526,110.67 to support proposed capital projects at the Dubbo City Regional Airport, and 2, that the documents and considerations in regard to this matter remain confidential to Council.
Okay, can I have a mover of the Committee of the Whole report? Moved Councillor Moore, seconded Councillor Ryan. Any discussion or debate on that matter? No, I put that. All those in favour? All right, no, carried. Councillors, that concludes this month's meeting of Dubbo Regional Council. Thank you for your attendance.